Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Geeks and Company. Before we get started with the show today, I want to give a special thanks out to Cosplay Alliance. Without Cosplay Alliance, the Geeks on the show probably never would have met, and we wouldn't be able to produce this show for you. So thanks again to Cosplay Alliance for powering the Geeks of the Roundtable podcasts. Let's get back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Geeks of the Roundtable podcasts. If you didn't know, we're actually available on a number of major podcasts platforms now. So if you don't want to actually sit here for an hour and watch us talking, you just want to listen to us, hey, go on to geeksoftheroundtable.podbean.com. You can catch the podcast there. You can catch us on Google Podcasts, Audible, you name it, we're probably on it at this point. But today we have a little bit of a special episode because today is Star Trek Day. And on Star Trek Day 2021, we're actually celebrating the 55th anniversary of Star Trek. Now, on September 8th, 1966, the first episode of creator Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek actually aired on CBC, capturing the minds of a generation. Now, 55 years later, spanning 8 different TV shows, 2 more coming, by the way, guys. We're going to talk about that as well. 13 films. We're actually celebrating a franchise that's, I think, has evolved past geek culture and made its way into actual pop culture. Arguably the greatest sci-fi franchise in the history of TV. Happy Star Trek Day, everybody.
Yay!
Woo. Well, we've got some special guests with us. I'll get to the old man over here in a minute, but I first want to talk to these two. First off, a business owner that specializes in corsets and nerdy bags. I checked out some of your bags on your Instagram. I thought that was pretty cool. Cosplayer, historical costumer, archer, mixologist. I mean, darkly designed. Holy cow, Debbie. Is there anything you don't do?
Not much.
Stay in touch with her friends.
Oh,
no.
I've been here not even 5 minutes.
Blood has been drawn.
Out.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Called out. Well, it doesn't live so far away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's always a problem, isn't it? Now, next to Debbie here, graphic designer, photographer. I'm not going to actually talk about your real day job because that's a little impolite, but all around Trek nerd. And this guy, folks, actually walked down the aisle to the Voyager theme song.
Yeah.
This is a Trek nerd. What's going on, Black Captain Kirk? What's happening, Tim?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey,
happy Star Trek Day to everyone. Yeah.
Happy Star Trek Day to you, too. Thanks for joining us. Where do we even start when we're talking about Star Trek? I mean, there's
that's cool.
55 years.
I don't need an intro, JS. That's fine. Just
you know what? You're right. I kind of forgot about Jeff. I'm so used.
That's fine.
Jeff is
Who cares?
Jeff is like a piece of furniture at the Geeks of the Roundtable now.
Yeah, he's the table. I'm the table.
He's the table.
I'm the table. You guys just sit around it.
You are the table. Oh, you know what?
Table.
I think we need to make a Jeff table now and actually have a live broadcast.
Maybe we don't have to do that, JS. Maybe we'll just let that go.
Messiah Complex cosplay. Jeff, did you ever finish that? Well, actually, I guarantee you didn't finish it yet because, I can't see you sanding that helmet
still
straight
filling
for a week.
Still filling, still standing. But the gun, I got the gun at an amazing deal, and it is coming assembled, so I'm only going to have to paint it. So the Peacemaker gun is going to be here tomorrow. So, and then the suit is on its way. So once I've got the gun and once I've painted the helmets, we're good to go. I get to be douchey Captain America for a while.
I'm kind of pleased to hear that. So I was listening to the last podcast a bit and just kept nodding my head listening to you in Sanding Hell because I did a Rocketeer helmet and it's the same. It's the same, man. Like you just keep sanding until you think you're done and then you just sand for the rest of your life.
It's never not perfectly smooth and perfectly right. So at one point, I'm just going to have to like, okay, it's good enough. Hit it with some. This is the primer that I like to use anyway. So it's a filler primer. And this works really, really well for getting the
try the Duplicolor.
The Duplicolor?
Yeah, you can use color too. Or if you really do still have a lot of striations, just use Flex Bond, I think.
Oh, I have some Flex Bond, yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can double check it when we're off. But yeah, that kind of stuff is really good for like, look at they're just not coming out and you need it to be super smooth. You can throw a coat on that in there before you really paint it up.
Yeah, I use the Bondo Spot Buddy for that. Like when it's just too much for filling and sanding, Bondo Spot Buddy, couple layers of that, filler primer, boom, away you go.
Done. Nice.
Yeah. Well done. I mean, you're still sanding for freaking ages, but yeah, definitely.
Obviously, we all cosplay, considering this was a Star Trek podcast, or all
a Star Trek. Well, actually, Tim, do you? I mean, you're obviously a cosplay photographer, but do you actually cosplay as well?
I've cosplayed a few times.
Yeah.
I admire you guys who do the crafting and stuff. That's pretty fantastic. Teaching yourselves how to do that and having the patience to do it. If I can't throw together something from like my Amazon or something, then I'm not going to cosplay as it, or and that's part of the reason why I backed out of cosplay and just kind of stayed behind the camera. I just I didn't have as much fun like envying other people's cosplay. I don't know, like I didn't put enough effort into mine, and then I would be miserable about it, and it's just like
I was just going to say sometimes it doesn't matter how much time or effort you put into it. It's all about doing it. What is that?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, what is that?
Jeff,
I think it's Jeff.
Yeah, I think when you pull that microphone over, it started around that time. It's probably interference or something.
It just stopped.
Okay. I won't move the microphone. JS, you are on mute, sir.
Something in your, I think, is interfering with the microphone.
Yeah. Is it okay now, though?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Right.
The interference is between the microphone and the chair. That's the problem.
Somebody's hacking into your comm badge, man.
Why did I invite you onto this podcast? What was I thinking exactly?
Because everyone else would love me.
Oh, no, because you were my last resort.
Oh, that's not nice.
That's so
not
mean.
nice.
You just wait, post-COVID cons are coming.
I know there are. Are you going to Fan Expo, by the way?
Well,
limited edition? If it happens?
So there's obviously a bunch of caveats. I have been invited to come on behalf of the Doctor Who Society, which means it's good because I can.
I met you at Fan Expo 2018. You were wearing. I'm pretty sure you were wearing a TARDIS dress.
Probably.
I have a picture. I've been looking for the picture ever since I've been looking for it ever since we started chatting, because I saw you in a TARDIS dress on your Instagram. I was like, I knew her from somewhere. I met you at Fan Expo a couple of years ago.
Well, it's funny that you bring it up. I guess I brought up Doctor Who Society, but just coming back to the whole like longest running sci-fi show, technically it's Doctor Who. Sorry. But it's the longest running. It's the longest running. Sure. Is it the greatest? I think it's, again, apples and oranges. It's a different kind of sci-fi.
It's very different kind of sci-fi.
Yeah. So.
And if we do a Doctor Who episode, we'll be sure not to invite Debbie, because she will shame us.
That's okay.
She will shame us with her knowledge of.
On my Instagram now, so I'll just
maybe I will.
She's like, I'll just message Jess directly.
That's right. Yeah.
This is actually a good segue, because Doctor Who was kind of my opening to Star Trek.
Oh, nice.
Funny enough.
To Star Trek, how did that happen?
Yeah. So when I was just a little, 4 or 5 year old, I was growing up in a small town in Quebec. And actually, I was mentioning that in one of our previous episodes where we had no cable. So my grandmother would actually record Saturday morning cartoons on VHS tapes, and then she would give them to me so I could watch them throughout the week, which meant that Saturday mornings, we only had one English channel, and that was CBC. Now, for folks that are listening or watching us, I don't know what CBC is. CBC is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, our version of the BBC, essentially. Actually, they're kind of sister organizations. They do a lot of co-productions together, including, back in the day, Doctor Who. So Doctor Who was a co-production between CBC and BBC, and would air Saturday mornings. I want to say at 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning, Doctor Who would air. And then after Doctor Who, we would get reruns of Star Trek, the original series. Mm-hmm. That is my first memory of Star Trek, is watching old TOS reruns on a crappy old tube TV. And, I'm a Trekkie now, but that, back then I was a little kid. Star Trek was just another show on TV. When I was 11 years old, Next Generation first aired. And that's when I was hooked. I was a Trekkie from the first episode till, today. 11 years old when First Generation first aired, 18 years old when the last episode aired. Now, by that point, the second season, or the third season, actually, of DS9 was just about to start. DS9, I don't know about you guys. For me, DS9 was my show.
I love DS9.
DS9 had a rocky start, had a couple rough years, but when that Dominion War started, I mean, it completely changed the direction of the show. And that's how I got into Trek. And from then on, I've seen everything Trek multiple times. For those of us in Canada, we used to have a TV channel called Space, which I think is now called CTV Sci-Fi. And Space Channel at 4 o'clock every day would air Star Trek. It didn't matter what show it was. They would air TNG, all 7 seasons. And then once all 7 seasons were done, then they would move on to DS9. And then they would air all 7 seasons to DS9. And then they'd move on to Voyager. And they would just go through all. So every day I would watch Star Trek. I've seen most episodes. I've seen every single episode of DS9 5 times. I've got the whole box set on DVD, and I have physically watched it 5 times from beginning to end. That's my story with Star Trek. That's how I got into Star Trek. That's how I got introduced to it. And DS9 is going to be the core of my love for Star Trek for the rest of my life. What about you guys? How did you guys get into Star Trek? Where did it all start?
You stole my story. I mean, it was the same for me. Like, I remember they played Doctor Who after Polka Dot Door.
Yes.
Right? So it was like Polka Dot Door, woo! And then Doctor Who would come on, and there's this crazy face flying at you. It would scare the crap out of me. I'd hide behind the couch. But it was the same. It was the original series. So like there will always be a place in my heart for the original series. TNG is my show. Like that. Data, Picard, like Riker. Like there's so much good stuff about that show. And I feel like it was really where Gene was really able to develop the show, and he wasn't quite being so directed to do, what the producers wanted, and he could actually write, proper content. And it's really where it hit its stride. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. You stole my story. Whatever. My favorite is TNG.
What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my brother, who was a few years older than me, when TNG came out. I was maybe like a few years old, and he was like really into it and watched it, and I just watched it with him. And then before I knew it, I loved it myself, and I was picking up on all the stories. And I remember one of the first episodes I ever saw was, I think it's called Skin of Evil, the Tasha Yar one. And I remember it messed me up. I was like a few years old.
Don't worry, you're not spoiling anything at this point. It's like 25 years later, bud.
Yeah. Well, it stuck with me. Not just that, but the whole series did, and I just loved everything about it. And then, as I'm getting older and becoming like a young teen and everything, I'm watching everything like, DS9 and into Voyager and stuff. And as I'm developing, like the show's developing, and I'm understanding and appreciating all the different layers and all the extra context to it. And Yeah, just loved it all ever since then. And then, as I got older, I had opportunities to go back and watch, the original series more. Even seeing like the old animated series, just because you need to like check everything off the list by the time you're, that much of a fan. And I think the only time I didn't really enjoy Trek, honestly, was Enterprise. Not to hate, but it wasn't really. I was a little disappointed. It was the only time I think they kind of faltered. Aside from the Kelvin movies, I'm not really the biggest fan of those, other than the casting and the soundtracks. But yeah, I mean, that's my story. I mean, Star Trek has a very special place in my heart. I feel like it has a lot to do with the fundamental beliefs and like kind of ethical kind of code that I try and live by. Not that I'm like some perfect person or something, but I think about like, what would Picard do? What would Janeway do? Like, those are like my measures of what the right thing to do and at pretty much any given moment would be. So anyway, huge fan. Good stuff.
Jeff.
What do you think?
Well, as the token old guy in the group, I'm going to have to take it back a little bit further than that. So I do remember, like my dad, we had one TV in the house and my dad was always in front of it. So Star Trek would come on because by then it was in syndication and such. But it would, for me, it was just in the background with like MASH and Monday Night Football and other things that my dad would watch. And then when I was 9 years old, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan came out. And talking earlier, we were talking about how The Matrix was a transformative movie for me. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, to this day, I could quote that movie front to back. That movie at 9 years old changed my life in such a fundamental way and gave birth to my love of sci-fi and geekdom from then on. Up until then, I loved watching Buck Rogers on TV too. That was like my favorite TV show when I was a kid. But Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, I watched so many times, and I ended up having the VHS box set of the first 5 Star Trek films with the original crew. That's how big a nerd I was for Star Trek. And then, much like you guys, when 87 came along and The Next Generation came out, I couldn't wait because, like Tim was saying, I'd already consumed all the content that was available at that time. I'd watched all the original series, I'd watched the animated series, I had watched the movies, and so when it was so juicy when it came out, when Next Generation came out, it was just the best. Especially at season 2 when it hit its stride, it really kept on going. Yeah. But I'm going to, again, because I have to be the grumpy old man, I'm going to be the slightly divergent one. I didn't get as into DS9. And I know everyone kind of holds DS9 up as the pillar.
I'm going to log off here.
I know. So hear me out, though. There is a reason. And without diverging too far, is I was a massive Babylon 5 fan. And I don't know if you guys know the story about how J. Michael Straczynski, as he was developing it, went to Paramount to pitch it as a Star Trek show, and Paramount declined it, and it got picked up somewhere else. And then a year later, DS9 was developed and came out. And if you've seen the shows, they're very, very similar.
That makes sense. I didn't know that.
Yeah, in plot and in setting. So it's not like I've watched DS9 and I've enjoyed DS9, but because I was such a huge Bab 5 fan, it kind of took it away from DS9 for me. And I'm with Tim as well. I dug Voyager, Enterprise. I've tried several times to get through Enterprise, and
the mirror episode
halfway through. It's rough. It's super rough.
Enterprise got canceled when it hit its stride.
That's what I've heard, but getting there is a journey that I've tried to make a few times and I just can't get there.
Sometimes it's right place, right time. Right? Like I go back and watch old episodes. I mean, maybe it's not the same, but maybe this is how you're feeling. Like when I try to go back and watch old Doctor Who, although I grew up with it, sort of, right? I mean, I'm a Fourth Doctor person. So Tom Baker was my guy. Anyway, going back and watching older episodes than that, I'm not in it. Like I am a Doctor Who fan, but it's not there for me. So I feel like unless you caught it, like for TNG, unless you caught it on TV as it was airing and you just latched onto an episode, I could see how you don't connect with it. Like I didn't connect really with Deep Space Nine, and there was issues that I had personally with it. But then when Voyager was on, I was like, Janeway's like, this is amazing. A female captain. Like as a female, I was instantly just like, Kay Milgrew was just amazing. So yeah, I think it's just right place, right time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't hate DS9, but it's not my favorite. Like look at what it's competing against when you're talking about Trek series. There's so many and they're so varied and so different.
So what is all your favorites? I mean, I'm guessing I get Next Gen from Debbie.
Yeah. Next Gen.
Tim?
I mean, it's hard to pick. They're all pretty amazing. I think that Next Generation is probably it for me, but I'll say DS9 is where for me I noticed that Star Trek could really like go to some dark places and really kind of push its audience into places where it's not always like a sunshiny moment at the end of the episode or like some kind of self-contained episode. I mean, they had problems that they could not fix from episode one, like story like problems like having to do with the Cardassians and the Bajorans, and religious stuff, like political stuff, racial stuff, like sexual orientation. They touched on so much that, and I think, like you said, like right place, right time. I was just at that moment in my life where like I was just, it was just perfect for me. And going back and watching it is just so much fun, seeing like some of that darker, like more hardcore stuff that DS9 gave us. I mean, the Dominion was just that was rough. That was some rough stuff for them. But anyway. Sorry, long answer.
No. It's still, it is Next Gen. For I think people in our age group and our generation, I mean, that was in '87 when that came out. I was 14 years old. Pretty important time in my life for a show like that to drop a weekly sci-fi series based on Star Trek. But if I were to like, if it's Next Gen at top, and then tied for second for me is Discovery and the original series. So that's where
really
that really
very interesting.
I mean, the original series is so like, again, because I fell in love with the movies, the original series has such a warm place in my heart because that's how I got introduced to the characters, is through the movies that were those characters. And then just Discovery was to me, Discovery is the new Next Gen. Like, it's a breath of life, bringing Trek back to the TV, back to its roots. And I have a mad respect for it that way. And I have a feeling once we get a little bit further down the road that Strange New Worlds is going to end up slowly finding its way up the ladder on that one. So,
I think so too.
Yeah.
Strange New World is looking, I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot from it yet, but it's looking amazing. It's looking amazing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with Tim on this one. My favorite definitely is Deep Space Nine. As much as I loved Next Gen, which is probably my second favorite after DS9. DS9 gave us different kind of storytelling. It opened us to a long-form storytelling that we had never had on Star Trek before. And it was able to introduce us to concepts that, when you're watching the original series, they're making one episode about this and one episode about that. But when you're actually able to turn that into a story arc, points like, Tim, like you were saying earlier, when you're talking about race or politics or, the whole Bajor prophets. I mean, there's so much going on Deep Space Nine that they were really able to give us the type of stories we had never seen before on Star Trek. And like you said, when the Dominion came along, I mean, from finding out about, the Changelings and the Vortas and the Jem'Hadar and then the Dominion and the Dominion War and the Cardassians. Listen, that for me was top Trek by far.
It's very deep storytelling.
It is.
Like, it's like, you're right. It's not on the surface, like, we're going to tie this in a bow and have a little G.I. Joe, like, tagline at the end when you're done an episode, right? Like, I agree that it was very, very deep storytelling.
There were some very dark storylines.
I think that's why I like Discovery as much, too, because Discovery is the same way. It's serialized, right? There's an arc that occurs the whole season. Yeah. So that's, and I think the shows like Game of Thrones and such have kind of spoiled us on that now, is if you can get me in on a 10-episode season, hour each, and you can just tell me one big fat story over that 10 episodes, man, that's my jam. But having said that, Strange New Worlds is supposed to be going back to being episodic again, like Next Gen and like the original series and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two kind of play off each other. Where
I feel like Voyager was kind of like a hybrid of that, where they had the long form stories like DS9, started us out with, but then they kind of had that fresh Next Generation feel, like what's going to happen next week, and I think that's what Strange New Worlds is going to be like. It's going to still have those overarching stories, but like you said, it'll be episodic. And I think maybe people who find Discovery a little dense or hard to get into might be a little bit. It might be easier for them to consume.
And I think that's the goal. I think they're trying to do the Scooby-Doo Mystery of the Week, and I think that's a wise move to bring in casual viewers as opposed to people that have to tune in every single week.
Well, it's so hard because they had to build their world at that time, right? And a lot of people had issues with this. Was supposed to be very early on. Oh, how come? Why does the bridge look like this? And why does everything look all streamlined? And I'm like, yeah, but it's a perspective of like, it depends on who is shooting it. Like, who knows what it looked like back then? So like, just because original series looked like it, this is what they had for props to make a bridge at that time. So like shows are obviously going to look different. So it's, people get hung up on that. And I think this is when I was saying earlier that I find some Trek fans are not so nice is in situations like this where they nitpick about the little things and not looking at it as they don't like change.
Right.
You know? So they're like, no, it's not the original series. Unless you're giving me something exactly like this series that I love, if it's different, they can't accept it. I mean, to bring up Enterprise, I actually was like, I was a flat no. I was a flat no when I started watching Enterprise. I was like, this box.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Debbie, you're on mute. Are you using Bluetooth headphones? But
there you go.
I'm fine.
So go on. You were talking about how you didn't like Enterprise. I'm all for it. Go ahead.
I was just like, I think it was because I knew who Scott was, but like I just kept. Now I can't think of how his real name.
Scott
is.
Bakula.
Thank you. I call him Baklava because it's like Barkley and broccoli. It's
because
like,
who doesn't love
baklava?
baklava? Come on, man.
That's good.
So and it was very different. It had a very old school, like happy intro, it's like very like, look at us, we went to the moon and now we're going to space. And I was just like, what is this crap?
That infamous intro song?
The intro,
Dude,
I didn't understand. Yeah.
No. It's a joke.
That was not Star Trek. That was what broke this. I actually enjoyed Enterprise. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. I liked Enterprise.
I like it now. Let me just, as a footnote, I do enjoy it now. And I do sing the intro song. I'm actually watching it right now. But originally, I was just like, no, this is not Star Trek.
Yeah, I was the same. I just couldn't grasp why now you would want to add an actual theme song. Like,
why go back in time? I mean, you painted yourself into a corner unless you're going to unravel everything, or unless you're going to come up with something smart like Discovery did and find a new way to retcon the whole universe and canon. Why are you going to go back into this really narrow point in time where really there wasn't a lot of exciting stuff going on, unless otherwise we would have known about it by now, and then to like make up all these stories and make it seem interesting now. It seemed like it's you can't paint this up to be like an interesting thing. Like nothing interesting happened now.
Well, okay. So the one interesting thing that I just loved about Enterprise is their whole teleporters. What is this? And like that, everyone's all afraid.
Oh, the danger of them.
The danger of like we've never.
Well, they didn't have transporters at first, right? Yeah.
Oh, exactly. So like I do like that. Like it's sort of like the intro of like how did things get started?
They didn't have transporters. They didn't have photon torpedoes. They didn't have any of
universal translators.
They didn't have universal translator.
Yeah. Speeds, like none of that. So like them developing it and then like encountering other species and like we'll make a trade. You do this and I do this and so I mean, I eventually I did find it fairly interesting, but it was different.
I've got a question actually, and I'm going to direct this more towards Tim because Tim, you touched on the Kelvin timeline films, and what you just said kind of has me a little bit curious because you said being handcuffed by canon, and how Discovery had a unique way of getting around that. I feel like the Kelvin films also had a unique way of getting around that.
They did, yeah.
But you didn't care for them. What was it about them specifically that you didn't care for, I guess, that took you out of it?
Sure. First, I like the music was amazing. The casting is perfect. Just absolutely great casting. I just feel like they were action movies set to a Star Trek theme. They weren't Star Trek. There was almost nothing about them that were Star Trek. It was as if like the studio had the rights to the movie and was like, let's make like a cool action movie that's with these characters, but it lacked that core Trekness, to use like a made up term, that everything else had. Even Enterprise had it. It just wasn't very exciting for me. But even Enterprise had like that. It was Trek. You could feel it. You knew it. It was in it. But I didn't get that feeling from the Kelvin movies. So they were fun to watch, but I was like secretly just waiting for them to come up with real Trek, and then before you know it, like Discovery comes out, and then I'm just like, here we go. This is what I was talking about. Like, and if it took the profitability of the Kelvin movies to get the backing necessary to, there she goes, to make Discovery and everything, then that's fine. Like, then that's, we gotta, can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs kind of thing. But yeah, that's just my feeling of it. Like, they were fun, but they weren't really Trek to me.
That's fair.
Yep. I kind of feel like one of the beauties of the old school one episode, one shot storytelling of the original series in Next Gen is that every episode was different. As in, an episode could be a comedy, another episode could be an action flick, another episode could be a drama. To me, that was always one of the attractive things of Star Trek. And one of the neat things is that from director to director, you were getting a different type of show. Which, funny enough, for the exact opposite reason of you is why I liked the Calvin Timeline movie. The first one, let's be honest, the second one and third one. The first one, 2009 Star Trek, I loved it specifically for that reason, because now we were getting another retelling of the original casts, but in a different setting. Now it was an action movie. That's why I actually enjoyed it myself. But so what are your favorites when we're talking movies? So we talked about shows. What are your favorite movies? I mean, it's a good segue. We might as well talk about it, right?
I think I was pretty explicit on mine. It's definitely The Wrath of Khan, which, by the way, and not to refute what Tim's saying, tell me that's not an action movie. I mean, that is tip top Trek, but that is some of the best Trek action you're ever going to see.
The best action, the best dialogue. And the dialogue. Forget about it.
Ricardo Montalban was like, "Oh, you think William Shatner's an overactor? You guys think shit."
And they danced perfectly together. It was
scenery in every friggin' scene I'm in, and he destroyed. He was so good. So yeah, for me, hands down, I found something to enjoy in all of them, and I understand that some of them are obviously weaker than others. Final Frontier, but I mean, overall, I've enjoyed every single film. I found something to enjoy in every single film. But man, Star Trek 2, I can't. Yeah, to me, that's the top of the hill, and there's nothing else even close.
I'd like to go next because I was going to point this out a while ago that Wrath of Khan scared the crap out of me when I was younger.
The
bugs in the ear. Oh my God, no. And I was so young that I came in, I must have like come into the living room as it was already going, and I didn't know that this was a Trek film because I was so young, and just saw that scene. It was just like horrifying.
That messed me up too.
And yeah, I had nightmares. Because I was just like, I don't understand like what this was. For the longest time, I didn't know it was a Trek film until I saw it years later. And I was like, oh. And now I watch it and I'm like, I still actually cringe. I think I will usually busy myself in the kitchen or do something when that part happens. Because I'm just like, no, I'm not having any part of that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite? I mean,
it's so hard because I do actually like the newer ones. Partly because it's got a bunch of actors in it that I absolutely adore. I don't know which number it is. The whale one.
The fourth one.
Home.
Yeah, there you go.
Home.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I will always love when Spock gives the pinch to the guy with the ghetto blaster.
Yeah. The punk on the punk on the bus.
Such a great scene.
Punk on a bus.
Yeah.
And
and they all clap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. Scene. This is like good. It's a good comedic, like
that had a lot of good comedic.
What would Spock do, too. Right? Like it had a lot of really great moments.
And a strong female co-lead character in that film too. So Dr. Gillian Jacobs or Gillian, whatever her name was. Yeah.
She was great.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, I feel like all of the newer movies, they're kind of lumped together in a sense that I see them I just see them as one, because it's sort of like the same characters just doing other things.
I see that.
Yeah, so I mean, when you start a film with a kid driving a Mustang up a cliff, I'm sorry, but I'm in.
Listening to the Beastie Boys, no less, too. So.
Yeah, that was a great start. To
yeah. Oh, and what's her name that's in that plays the alien that helps them? Was it that? No, it wasn't in that film. It was.
Are you talking about you talking about the third one, Beyond?
Beyond, it sounds like you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
Beyond,
she was great. She was really good.
She was fantastic, and she's been in everything. Like she
her
was
and Idris
in
Elba
Kingsman.
were like really good.
She was. Yeah. Oh, so good, so good. And it's funny because a lot of people didn't even really know it was Idris. You know, if they didn't know going in that it was Idris, they did such an amazing makeup job on him that I was.
His makeup job was incredible in that. I mean, that's the one thing about Trek I will say is that their makeup. I mean, people like to talk about Star Wars, but the Trek makeup is on par with anything else, and it has been for decades, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Is there anything that Idris is in that he's not fantastic in, though? Like, honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I could go on about the Dark Tower, but
I haven't seen the Dark Tower, so
everything.
Was he good in it? But was he? Maybe it was a bad movie. He was good in it.
No, yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a lot of great actors that are in things that just are given a shit script, or just shot really badly. I mean, the Dark Tower. I mean, that could be like a whole other thing. Like, I mean, I've read that. That's like my favorite book series.
Oh, I've read the books numerous times, but I heard the movie was terrible. So
it just took a different direction.
It's not an adaptation of the books.
Right.
No,
that's
really
basically what I've heard.
It's basically a new story that they've cherry-picked elements out of the books to create one story, essentially.
Yes. But it was just odd characters because you've got Matthew McConaughey and then you've got Idris Elba, and I'm like,
I liked him as the gunslinger though. I thought he was a great gunslinger, but that's just me.
Considering his signature. Well, Matthew McConaughey's character as like the Dark Man or the. Is he called the Dark Man? He had many names.
Yeah, he had many names.
He had many names, but basically,
the Randall Flagg guy or whatever.
Yes.
The walking dude.
There you go.
The fact that his thing in the books was that he titters, like the way he talks, he like is tittering, and I always wondered what that would sound like as a person. Like
they didn't do that at all.
No, well, he kind of did. Like he has this way of laughing, Matthew McConaughey in the film that I was like. Okay, I could see how that would be construed that way. Anyway, another subject for another time.
Definitely. You go back to what we were saying. I'm going to be with Jeff on. Did Tim not already tell us who his favorite was?
Yeah, you were last, Jeff.
Not JS. Listen, all right.
Tim, what was your favorite again, Tim?
Yeah, I didn't. I commented. I think on the other. Sorry if I keep jumping in, guys. Yeah, I think. My favorite, I'm going to break it down in a couple of quick things. My favorite cinematic experience was First Contact. The best movie is Wrath of Khan. But I think the one that...
You just stole what I was going to say. That's exactly where I was going.
But I will say the one that made one of the biggest impacts on me was probably The Undiscovered Country, because that is where I realized the original series was pretty awesome. Like, because up until then, it was like some dated, like old-timey sci-fi that I didn't have time for. And then when that movie came out, I was floored, like with everything that they did with like the Klingons and the dark tone of it. And of course, the socio-political aspects of it and humanizing the whole Klingons and stuff. It was amazing.
Same director as Wrath of Khan, by the way. Nicholas Meyer directed both films, so that's why you're getting the best of Trek in those films, because he's just got an eye for it. So,
yeah, and I'm totally with you. Wrath of Khan is probably my favorite, but very, very, very closely followed by First Contact.
Yeah, that was so good.
First Contact was so good. I mean, Picard with the more. I mean, we almost got Loki. I mean, I was kind of hoping we would get Locutus back. We kind of, I don't know. If you haven't seen, listen, if somebody is listening to this and you have not seen First Contact,
yeah,
I don't know who the hell you are.
Right.
Yeah, like what the hell?
Stop and
Resistance is futile. Go watch it.
Yes, definitely. I want to switch it up a little bit. For everybody that is watching us, right over Jeff's shoulder, you can see our avatar, our geek master, Mr. Winston over here. I got him on my sweater too. Check this out. I made a
nice.
little,
I like it. I got to give me some swag. That's nice.
Yes, definitely. And Winston likes to play some games around here. And one of the games he likes to play, which we also played last week, is Champ versus Chump. And we usually will pit a superhero against another. We did last week. We did Batman versus Iron Man. I think pretty classic comparison. Two Playboy billionaires. This week we're going to change it a little bit. Being Star Trek Day, 55th anniversary of our favorite show. If you had to choose, Enterprise A versus Enterprise D, and why?
Who's captain? Who's captaining both ships?
That's okay. Kirk versus Picard.
See, that's the real. Because technologically, obviously, the D far out surpasses the A. It's not the two ships aren't even close. It's over 70 years apart in technology, so there's no chance. But the wily Kirk versus sort of a little more laid back Picard, I think you got to give the nod to the A. I think Kirk finds a way. He finds a way.
You did
Bill
not.
Kobayashi Maru it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He doesn't believe in the no-win scenario, and he would find a way to win that fight. Picard would try to diplomat his way out of it, and Kirk would just be throwing phasers in his face while he was trying to talk his way out of it. So, I got to go for the A on that one. What do you guys think,
Debbie?
I'll be honest. I'm not great with the ships.
Well, literally, Kirk's ship versus Picard's ship, and Kirk's movie ship, by the way. Yeah.
Oh Jesus.
Do you want us to come back to you?
No, I mean it's true. I think the newer ship, like the Picard one, is stronger. I mean, it's a tough call. I don't know. I call it a draw. Like they're either going to destroy each other, or Picard will get enough words in long enough to be able to convince Kirk that we can work something out. I mean, think about it. Like it's in the future. Everybody's supposed to be all diplomatic about shit, right? Like, I don't know.
Oh, come on. Kirk's all like fire phasers first, ask questions later. Come on.
That's why my handle is Black Captain Kirk and not Black Picard or something, because like I'm a Kirk, like I would rather serve under Picard, but I feel like I identify more with Kirk, if that makes more sense. Like I'm not some like scholar patient dude. I'm a lot more of a shoot from the hip, try and like MacGyver way out kind of thing.
But the question would be, would the older ship even affect the newer ship with the phasers? So let's say Kirk does do this, right? And he just shoots like crazy. Is Picard just going to be like, shields up, let him get it out of his system, and then be like, okay, hail him? Like
Wrath of Khan, he found a way to take down Khan's shields from his ship and then blasted him. Kirk will find a way.
He's pretty clever.
Yep. And he's a warrior, and like I said, Picard's a diplomat. So
but he's got data.
Let's let Tim weigh in on this because I'm curious as to what he thinks.
So I on all counts, I'm going to go with the D. I'd rather serve under Picard. I wish I could be more of a Picard. The ship is far more superior in many ways. I mean, it can separate. You got the saucer section, strategically and tactically, it's got so many more advantages. It's got the holodeck. It's got, much more room. It's a much bigger ship. I feel like there's just too many benefits there. So I definitely go D. That being said, the E is also pretty cool, as you guys remember from.
Sorry, you stole my line again.
I mean, the captain's yacht is a pretty baller extra piece of machinery there. That captain's yacht's pretty cool. But again, I don't think that one can separate for its saucer section. I'm not sure if it can. But anyway, D.
I don't think they ever really cleared that up.
No.
I don't think we really know if the saucer of the E actually separates or not. It's never been. As far as I know, it might be in some sort of a technical manual, but
why all saucers don't separate after they came up with the,
yeah, what's the point of having a saucer if it's not going to separate, right? Like, anyway, yeah.
Once you realize the benefits of it or whatever, it's like, was it like that Voyager episode, the Prometheus? You remember that one? Like the that advanced ship that like they beamed that they beamed the EMH onto, and it like could break into like 3 different pieces and be navigated by one helm. Like, that's pretty cool. So anyway, sorry.
What do you think, JS? Who wins between the A and the D? With Kirk and, by the way, for my answer, if Riker's captaining the D, it's the D because it's Riker. But I mean, I digress.
Especially if it's lower decks Riker. I was going to cheat. I was going to pull a Kirk and a Kobayashi Maru and say the Enterprise E. I mean, obviously, the Enterprise D is by far, it's like 10 times the size. It's 5 times as fast. It's got, not only photon torpedoes, but quantum. Actually, did the D have quantum torpedoes, or did they only get those in the E?
That's on the E.
Yeah.
That's only on the E, regardless. The D technologically is obviously by far stronger. If you were handing me the keys and I was taking one out for a cruise down Main Street, I'm taking the A.
True, yeah.
Every day of the week.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, the A is designed. I mean, it's classic. Even further than the A, I'm taking the original. The original
the
Enterprise.
NX-01.
No, not the NX-01, but the NCC 1701. Not the A.
Yeah,
NCC 1701 from the original series.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm taking out for a spin down Main Street.
Yeah, it's like a classic car.
Exactly. It's a hot rod.
Obviously. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't really whip the E in the same way.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't, definitely. We're going to segue a little bit from Picard's ship to Picard season 2. I've got a bunch of topics that I want us to talk about, but we've already been on here for almost 50 minutes. So I want to get to the Picard season 2 trailer that just came out today. Tim cheated, FYI. Tim actually watched the trailer first thing this morning, apparently. So it's not an official reaction from him.
You're the only one not wearing a red shirt. What the hell?
I'm wearing my Dixon Hill private investigations shirt.
It's very nice.
I didn't notice that.
Nice move, Dix.
That's
Very
pretty
nice.
cool.
Love it.
I first thing this morning, I opened up YouTube and I somehow clicked on the first video, and I didn't realize it was a new Picard trailer. So 10 seconds in, I realized, oh crap, I don't want to watch this right now. I want to actually do a reaction video. And then I figured, you know what? Screw the reaction video. Let's watch it live with, everybody on the podcast. So I'm going to play. You should be able to hear the sound. Actually, if you give me a second here, I will make sure that is the case. Share screen. Audio. This one.
I like that he's saying it while.
And there we go. Hey, listen, I have to say it because I recorded a whole video 2 weeks ago where I'm doing a reaction to a trailer for none of the audio to come through. So I scrapped it. So that's why I'm making sure now that it's actually there. So let's check it out. If you guys want me to stop it, just, yell it out and I'll stop it.
I have to cut in for a second, everybody here. Unfortunately, due to a copyright claim by CBS CID Promotions, they have blocked the podcast, which means that I do need to take out the Picard reaction part, or at least us watching the trailer out of the podcast, because for some reason, CBS doesn't want us to show you their trailer. So very sorry about this, folks, but we will rejoin right after we are done watching the trailer with our comments.
I don't even know where to start here.
There's so much.
There's so much to unpack there. The one thing I wrote down, and then I stopped in the middle of writing it down because the trailer wouldn't freaking stop showing crazy stuff. They bring the Borg Queen back.
Do they?
It looks like they bring her out of stasis
yeah.
and plug her in so that she turns on again, so that she can help them go back in the past, like she did in First Contact.
Oh,
that's
right.
what we're seeing there.
That happened. Okay.
So in First Contact, at the end, they kill the Borg Queen, and all that's left is the skull and spine and all that stuff.
Yeah, the metallic. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that's what they're playing off of. How they actually bring her back, I don't know. But you know what? I'm going to let you guys talk about this for a second because I need to unpack a little bit of what I've seen here.
My assumption is that... Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Debbie.
No, you please go ahead. You go ahead.
My assumption, and again, all I have is that trailer to go off of, is that and seeing how the Borg Queen was left at the end of First Contact, not having any organic material left on her, I think she was dead because the Borg can't exist without the organic components as well. So like that is likely a copy of the Borg Queen, and they've already hinted at the fact that even though there's one Borg Queen, that there's probably others that are in stasis elsewhere that can boot up whenever the first one gets killed. So that's probably one that they found or kept or something from some point.
I'm pretty sure they did say at one point that the Borg Queen is like a queen bee. When one dies, another one gets created. Yeah, I don't know if I imagined that, but I'm pretty sure I had heard that at some point somewhere. So
I think you're
the
right.
Borg Queen is not just one, right? It could be over multiple generations, and she would always know everything that queen knew because of the collective, right? They're all connected anyway, so
it's in the cloud, man. It's all in the cloud.
It's all in the cloud.
It's a Borg cloud. I wonder if that's I thought I heard that the same actress that played that Borg Queen was doing the Queen again.
I wish.
No,
Alice Krieg.
It's not, right?
It's a new actress.
It's not.
She's too
so
old.
Alice Krieg did First Contact as well as the series finale of Voyager.
Yeah.
The other 3 episodes in Voyager were God, what was her name? Susanna Thompson. This is Annie Wershing.
Yep.
Now, I've never seen Annie Wershing in anything other than 24. And like I said in my video that I just posted a couple days ago, that was years ago. So I don't really remember her all that well. But it is a different actress. She looks very much like she's got the same facial structure. I mean, you could tell she looks very much, especially like the Voyager Borg Queen. Especially in the shot that we saw there.
I questioned it. Yeah, but I was just thinking like, okay, age-wise, she'd be way too old. The original actress. I do want to point out. I'm sorry, anything's good with John Delancey.
I love.
He
looks great. He's aged very well.
So good. Yes, he looks
really
good. So I really hope that this does well, just because I think those were some of my favorite episodes in the series, was the ones where Q shows up and he does weird things. So even when I was watching Voyager, when Q shows up and I'm like, what? And he's asking like Jane.
Oh,
you went on mute again.
I keep playing with the cord. I should just not touch things.
Jeff learned that.
Well, maybe it's because Jeff's always telling me not to touch things.
It's true. That's why we can't have nice things, Debbie.
But yeah, it's anyway, I'm just loving that John is in this. I think that there's this all kinds of like tension that can happen by bringing the Borg Queen back and having 7 of 9 there, and just how she feels about that whole situation, which is probably why we get that image of her backing up with a very distressed look on her face. I'm sure there's something happening.
So if you've seen the other trailer, that's actually a scene where she's looking at herself in the mirror. And she's seeing for the first time she no longer has Borg implants on her face. And she's like, oh my God. Yeah. Well, at least that's what they were making it out to look like.
That's what that's what they're hinting at. It's hard to say for sure. But
So a couple little nuggets for you guys. So as Debbie was saying, I hope it does well. So when they dropped the trailer today, they also announced that season 3, it's been renewed for season 3.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, what the scuttlebutt is that they've already shot season 3, that they shot the bulk of season 2 and season 3 back to back.
Apparently that didn't happen.
Yes. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of story when you start getting into time travel and such. I will say this, other than John Delancey, they were very cagey about not showing any other former next gen folk that might end up appearing on this show.
Well, I don't think they will. And I'll tell you exactly why I don't think they will, because I think that any old characters, any cameos that we're going to see are, I think, and we'll see when this comes out, but I think that we're going to see all these old faces in like a what if style scenario where there's somebody else.
Listen, if I don't get some LeVar
Oh,
Burton
that would
on
be
the show,
I was just
I'm
gonna
gonna
say that.
lose my mind if I don't get some
I mean,
Geordi. You
there-
can't give me Data,
yeah.
Riker, and Troy and not give me Geordi. I will flip the fuck out. I apologize.
I'm
I will
pretty
bet
sure
you we get to see
Come
Geordi and Worf in
on.
this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're. I
I
think
mean,
we're gonna see
LeVar's already talked about how he's more than happy. So I
Mhm.
suspect that they wouldn't not jump on that opportunity.
Guinan's
So-
back.
Yeah, Guinan. How old is Whoopi now? Like,
Yeah, she's back.
she's getting
That's
shorter. It's like shorter, and her costumes are getting more voluminous. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So as far as the time travel element goes, because time travel has always been an essential plot device for Star Trek. It's literally appeared in pretty much every iteration. In fact, wasn't the big time war was the big thing on Enterprise and such too.
Mhm.
So time travel is definitely something that's tried and true on Trek. Not every time they've tried to do it, it's been done well, but most of the time they seem to kind of get to where they need to go, and you don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about sort of how they got there. So that's what's going to be interesting about this. Because this is very multiverse so hot right now. This is we changed one thing in the past, and
Different
now all
timelines.
these different timelines. So that looks like where this is going, and of course the classic, like, we only have 3 days, so we can time travel to any point we want, but we only have 3 days to fix this. Well, okay, sure, that's fine. Yeah, you can time travel, but you've only got 3 days.
Yeah.
It gives them the freedom to do what they want with, like,
Of course,
you know,
of course.
every different kind of scenario, though, too, right? Like, you
Yeah.
wanting LeVar, it's like they know what the fans want.
Yeah,
And also,
Gonna try to fulfill that, obviously.
and I feel like you notice a lot with Picard that I feel like they did a good job of probably like saving a lot of money by shooting in places that didn't need a lot of like retrofitting and set stuff. Like the Daystrom Institute was obviously like some fancy office building or college or something, right? Chateau Picard, even the ship, the Serena, I think it was called. Even that like was very minimal when it came to like the dramatic set like building, unlike Discovery, which they probably spent like all kinds of money on. So I feel like them traveling back in time, not that they chose the story because they wanted to save money, but it gives them, like you said, more freedom because they can shoot anywhere now, and they can throw in a bunch of like awesome.
They shoot here in Toronto.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's right.
And
That's right.
I am I guarantee you, before Discovery is over, I will visit that set. Guarantee.
My
you, I
friend
will visit
actually
that set.
did. My friend helped to do the leather work for all the Klingon costumes.
Oh, really?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What
It
did
was,
you
like,
guys think
super
about?
Oh, that's a good topic to bring up.
Yeah, so I want to
Yeah.
switch a little bit from Picard to Discovery here because, again, we've been on for quite a while, about an hour now. What did you guys think of the way that the Klingons were reintroduced into Discovery and how different they made them versus, what we're used to seeing, and then how they're slowly now bringing them back to what we're used to seeing?
I mean, I think this all goes back to that original episode. What was it? Trials and Tribulations. Was that it? No, there was
Trials and Tribulations was
one-
the Tribble episode on original series.
And then they did DS9.
No,
as
DS9.
well.
no,
Sorry.
no,
And they did
Trials and
DS9.
Tribulations
with
was
Tribbles
DS9.
was
The Trouble with Tribbles and
Trouble.
Trials and Tribulations.
Yes.
So the Trials
Good job,
and
Jen. There you
Tribulations. I'm pretty sure it was because they were all sitting like in the mess hall or whatever, and Worf is there, and they're looking at the old Klingons, and they're looking at Worf, and like, what happened? And he's like, we don't talk about that time.
Yeah.
Well, that they've explained. They
In
explained it
Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Enterprise, they
Right.
explain how Klingons went through genetic altering, and that's
Because of Singh, right?
in Union Sung Khan, not Khan. Sorry,
Sung, the old Sung, right?
Sung. That's
Yeah,
right,
Sung.
the old Sung.
Yeah.
And that's what caused them to change into these, rigid forehead creatures that we're used to seeing. But
Mhm.
even then, I mean, when you were looking at the no hair, like not even eyebrows, all these different colors, like you got blue Klingons and red Klingons and purple Klingons, and like
We are all accepting of all nationalities.
hey, listen, we are. But do you guys care about those type of things? Does that break canon
Sorry,
for
I'm
you
gonna
guys,
stop
or do
talking.
you care?
I don't.
Tim,
I
what do you
don't
think? Get in there.
Yeah, get in there. Interrupt me.
I know it's okay. I admit when I first saw the design of the new Klingons, when those like first images were tweeted out of like a bunch of Klingons sitting around like a commissary table or something on the Discovery set, I was a little concerned because I was like, no, that can't be Klingons. It's another alien race. And then when they officially said it, I was a little annoyed. After seeing what they did with the Klingon race and Discovery and adding so much depth to them in that first season, I was blown away and I loved it. And then with the whole redesign of it, you just gotta roll with it because like that's what they did with the Klingons the first time, right? Like you didn't see the new Klingons until the motion picture when V'ger like kind of wiped out those two ships. And when you first see them, like you need to be told that those are Klingons. Or no, you see the ship and you recognize that it's a Klingon ship, but when you see them, you're like, what's with these eyebrows and the cranial ridges and stuff? So I think at that time there were probably people that were a little upset about it too. And, you know, it goes back to my whole theory about like there were people on the wrong side of history with TNG saying that it's not real Trek because it's not like the original series. And then like, you know, they all figured it out. And same thing with Discovery. A lot of time, I think a lot of people are giving it a hard time because they can't see it for what it is, maybe because they're too close to it or because they love the last version so much. But it's that same kind of history repeating itself where it's like, no, this is great. And what they're doing is smart and good and it's different, but it has to be different. Otherwise, we're just going to be chasing our tails like we did with Enterprise. And I think that was a big problem with Enterprise is they were too scared to do something different. And they didn't realize that they needed to do that until it was late in the show. And by then it was already canceled. So they thought that they had to stick to what was already created so much that they were just kind of chasing their tails and painting themselves into a corner and whatever other metaphors you want to use. But that's my opinion.
I agree. I think I'm probably on the other side of that in the sense that I loved the way that Worf was done and like that style, the TNG style of Klingons that I did have some preconceptions of how I felt that they should be portrayed. So I was at first like, you know, to be honest, it was like, I think their heads are too bulbous. Like the new design, their heads look gigantic. And because there's lack of hair too, right? So it was just like big heads, but the costuming was amazing, like very scaly looking, very pointy, and like had lots of like dimension, which was fantastic.
Dangerous.
Right. Like you don't want to touch these. You can't hug these guys. Like it's just not. And they're meant to be that way. So I understand where they were going with it, but it was, I think at the time, too different for me to be like, I need a minute. I'm better now. I'm more accepting, but yeah, it took me a bit.
What do you guys
It's
think
like the
about
Kelvin Klingons.
Yeah, well, Tim, you...
Sorry.
you rip the words right out of my mouth every time. Yeah, I was just going to say, what do you guys think about that theory that Discovery is actually set in the Kelvin timeline because of how similar the Kelvin Klingons are versus the Discovery Klingons?
I think that I don't believe in that theory. I think that they were heavily influenced by the design of the Kelvin movies. I think like just like it showed the studios that there is still money in Star Trek. It kind of showed them that there's like that they shouldn't be scared of changing it up. Because I love the design of them in the Klingons and the recent movies. So I think I was a little bit more ready for it, but also I was just like so ready for new Trek that honestly they could have looked like, you know, like some ridiculous, they could have looked like Smurfs and I would have been like all for it because I'm just so into like some kind of new Trek that I need it. So anyway, I might not, you know, have the best like point of view on that.
Also,
Jeff?
People have conspiracy theories about everything. So like,
well, fair enough, but
you know,
isn't that
answer
the
in
fun part of being a
everything.
geek?
Yeah, especially when there are actual Easter eggs there that you've tried to guess and you guessed correct.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with the new look. I thought they looked really, really good, and I'm glad they eventually sort of got back to showing us more and getting a little bit more in depth. But watching those first couple of episodes of Discovery, I thought they were going to be like the big bad, like that was going to be like, I thought they were going to have this giant, huge story arc. And then after the first couple episodes, it just falls right. And then they're just not seen again for a while. And I guess my expectations were too high because it was the Klingons. And I thought, oh, if we want to get into some classic Trek, here we are, the Federation versus the Klingons, a new war starts, aggression, like the whole 9 years, this is going to be great. And then it wasn't. And I was like, what happened to my Klingon? I'm like, what's going on? So I think my expectations were too high. Kind of like Tim was saying, like, give me Trek. Give me that juicy Trek. Give me that Federation versus Klingon stuff. And it just kind of never materialized. So that's where it kind of fell off for me. But the design, yeah, I had no problem with it at all. They're still Klingons. They look Klingon enough to me that it didn't take me out of it to be like, oh, that's not right. I was fine with it.
Yeah, I agree that when I watched the first episode of Discovery, I was like, yes, we're getting like the Dominion War all over again. And then that didn't happen.
No.
So that was a little bit disappointing. But the one thing I really have enjoyed about Discovery is that every season feels like its own show. Yeah. Every season has its own main story arc that is completely different, super fresh. Like now we're in the future. You know what I mean? Like
1,000 years in the future.
1,000 years in the future, right? Like, is the next season going to be also again something completely different? Like, I hope
truly where no one has gone before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be
really
like old Trek, but way in the future.
Yeah,
and with like a crew that doesn't really know about what's going on. So it's going to Voyager. It's going to be like new Voyager.
I see Discovery as like the goth Star Trek. To be honest, it's very dark. Like I found, does no one turn a light on the bridge there ever? Like, there's so many dark corners. It had to have been.
I love the Discovery Bridge. It's a beautiful bridge.
Yeah,
beautiful
I think it's gorgeous.
And like, it's so tactical and
it's beautiful. Like but
it's like
my first thought was just like, this is literally like a goth version of Star Trek. Like if a goth created Star Trek, this would be it. Which I'm totally cool with that.
So the only new show we haven't talked about yet,
Lower Decks.
Lower Decks.
Love it.
And
okay, so I haven't watched it.
Oh my god,
it's really fun.
Lower Decks?
But please carry on. I know
this
Deck
is
plays
like
in it, and
it's kind of like the. I hate saying it's kind of like The Simpsons versus Star Trek, but it kind of is. Kind of like Family Guy versus Star Trek. I don't even know.
It's got a little bit of bite to it, like a Rick and Morty kind of bite.
A Rick and
Morty,
like
an Archer.
Not like
like if Archer and Star Trek had a baby, it's Lower Decks.
It's Lower Decks. Yeah. And in this, Riker is a complete maniac at the helm of the Titan, and the main characters are all. There's one ensign, and the other ones are just crewmen. So they're literally the Lower Decks people of the Star Trek world. And it's their side of the adventures that you see. And obviously, being a cartoon and a comedy, they're the ones responsible for 99.9% of the issues that they're having. It is genius. It's hilarious. I love the characters. I can't believe, Debbie, you haven't watched it. You got to check it out.
It sounds like Downton Abbey in space.
I know what you mean.
Yes, you can put it that way.
It's all the servant guy. It's the Lower Decks. So, like, sorry, you don't watch Downton Abbey? What's wrong with you? But anyway, it's like, the servant people talking about the perspective of the higher ups. It's the same shit.
It's a fresh take on Star Trek that I think was needed. I've been a proponent of saying that Trek should be different. Every show should be different. When they originally came out with Enterprise was said to be a darker horror-style show, which it wasn't. Yeah, there were a couple of darker episodes, but it was never a horror show. I was hoping for an actual horror Star Trek show, which we didn't get. Now we're finally getting an actual comedy Star Trek show, which is amazing. We need a horror show. We need an action show. We need a drama. We need different Star Trek. That's what I hope Strange New Worlds is going to bring. I think Strange New World is going to go back to that old school storytelling like they were doing in the original series days, where every episode was very, very different in tone and in character and in storytelling even.
Well, now you've got Prodigy coming out too, which is...
And you've got Prodigy really coming out too.
Yeah,
Prodigy, looking at... I don't know if you guys seen the trailer that came out today.
Yeah.
It does look like it's a little bit more for kids.
It is. It's geared towards kids, but Kate Mulgrew is coming back to reprise her role as Captain Janeway. So,
really?
Yeah.
And this
She's
one,
sorry, we're talking about Prodigy.
So Lower Decks is more of a like an Archer style, like a classic. There's obviously some CG type stuff in there, but yeah, Prodigy is like a Pixar film. It's like a computer generated animation. Yeah. Okay. But it is aimed towards kids. But yeah, they've got like a bunch of teenage aliens take over a Federation ship, or like find a Federation ship and they kind of fly it. And it's almost like Kate Mulgrew is like the EMC, like the emergency.
She is. She's the emergency
captain
command,
or whatever you would
She's
say.
the emergency command hologram.
Yeah, so she's kind of guiding them through on how to pilot the ship and bold to go where no one's gone before. So yeah, it looks interesting. I don't care if it's for kids. I'm going to check it out anyway and see what's up.
So. It's going to be like television to watch.
Yeah, it's not, and I think like even though it's made so that kids can get into it, it's supposed to be like for the whole family kind of thing. So like we can watch it by ourselves and not feel like we're like some creepy old person watching a kids show.
I always feel like a creepy old person, so don't worry about that. That's my role here on the podcast.
No, but it looks really, really interesting in many ways. And I watched the trailer and I watched the title sequence. They released that, and that too like gives you the Star Trek warm and fuzzies that you're supposed to get from the title sequence. So I'm super pumped. That you do not get from Enterprise, from the Rod Stewart cover or whatever that was.
It's been a long time.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Where's my mute button? Can we mute her? Let's mute her.
I was going to ask her to sing the rest of it, but
no, I'm not going to. I can't even hear myself because I have noise canceling headphones on. So it sounds horrible. I won't do that.
So we had to wait. I forget how long now between Enterprise and Discovery. How many years was it? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
I mean, Enterprise ended around, I'd say like 2004. And so, yeah, Discovery was what, like 2018 maybe?
So 15 years, let's say, roughly, between Enterprise and Discovery. All of a sudden now we're going to have 4 different Star Trek TV shows.
We're going to have 5 in production.
5 different Star Trek TV shows in production at the same time. Listen, I'm always up for more Trek. Like I said, it feels like we're always waiting for more Trek. And now all of a sudden it's like the golden age of Trek. Like it's just coming at us fast and furious. When do you think it becomes too much Trek?
I think Marvel has really sort of dissuaded people from thinking that you can get an oversaturation of things. And now from what I've heard, they're working on a 4th film in the Kelvin timeline. Tim, you'll be happy to know. And bringing back
money there,
and such. Yeah, exactly. So I think as long as, kind of like what you were saying, JS, as long as you keep things fresh, as long as you're just churning out the same stuff over and over again, as long as you're trying new things and different things, and hey, there's 5 shows. Maybe one of them won't work. Maybe Lower Decks won't get the ratings it needs, so it only lasts 2 seasons. Or maybe Prodigy doesn't quite capture the audience it needs to. But as long as it seems fresh and you're doing new things every time, you can put 20 Star Trek shows on, man. I'm not going to be mad as long as they're good, well-produced, have high production values, and they're bringing me something that, to Tim's point, that's still quintessentially Trek, but changing it up enough that it's just not a rehash of what's already come before.
Yeah, and like with having all these different streaming channels and all these different corners of the space where people can consume so much content, oversaturation isn't really a threat as long as you're not overrunning like all the other areas with the same like kind of marketing for that said intellectual property. So it's like Star Trek people aren't going to get tired of too much Star Trek, right? But maybe the rest of the world might, but they're also not paying attention to Paramount Plus and all these things as much as we are. So they're not even going to notice it until one of us are like talking their ears off about it, right? So I'm not worried about that. As long as it stays quality, I'm happy. And so far, it seems like they are not going to make the same mistakes they did with Enterprise, at least not for a long time, until they forget it and potentially make that same mistake again. But I think that'll be some time.
Well, to be fair, though, Tim, don't you think that, and I'll let you guys answer the question, but to be fair, Tim, don't you feel like every single Star Trek show has had the first or even first 2 seasons be very rocky? Star Trek typically takes a couple of years before it gets its footing, and then it really goes. Next Generation didn't get good till the second season.
It's actually a term in television used now throughout about a show growing a beard, and it refers
in Riker.
It refers to the second season of Next Gen when Riker grew the beard and the show started to take off. So you will hear people today, TV execs today, talk about the show had to grow its beard first before it got good. So that's a common trope. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
I've never heard that.
Yep.
I have to point out, considering we're doing a Star Trek episode, that I feel like we can't not at least mention the Orville.
I won't watch.
In a sense, no, really.
I'm sorry, guys.
I haven't seen a
that's
single
like
minute of it.
flat
I'm not
out.
gonna lie. I've not watched any of it.
Wow.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love the Orville.
So do I.
My main gripe with the Orville is that, first of all, the breaks are too long. Like, there's too many at this point years between seasons. Yeah. That's my first issue with the show. My other main issue with the show is that it started as being a pure slapstick Star Trek, which was freaking amazing, just like Lower Decks. It was a live action version of Lower Decks. But they've tried to make it more serious in the second season, and it kind of didn't work for me.
No, I feel you're right. I mean, I feel like the first season they probably had so much ammo of everything that they could do that you got it all out, and it was very natural. And then it was again the same thing of like, well, we got to do a moral to the story. Like they had a whole like, there's that they have an alien that they both. They don't have a sex and they have a child, and then they have to decide whether that child will be will be a male or female. Or was that second season? I can't remember.
I can't remember now, but yes, I know which episode you're talking about. And they have to decide the sex of the baby.
Yeah. So like there's sort of controversial situations that they're trying to attack, but I don't think that that's a great direction for them to take, considering that it is supposed to be such a comedic show, because you lose, like, you have to decide, like, are we going to do comedy or are we going to do serious, like, attack serious situations? Like, otherwise it just looks like you're making a joke of that.
But you can, like, Galaxy Quest is a good example of you can try to kind of do both, like have the feel like I hear people say all the time that Galaxy Quest is the best Star Trek movie ever made. Right, I hear people say that all the time. I don't agree. I love Galaxy Quest though, and it definitely like rides that line between just slapstick comedy but it still has heart and characters that you care about and a story and everything else. So I think you can kind of like I get that impression from the Orville. Like at first when I first started watching it, I was like, are they taking a stab at Star Trek? Like, are they making fun of it, or is it because they love Star Trek? I was questioning why the show existed in the first place. I was like, why do we have this?
Seth is he's like a huge Star Trek fan, and I appreciate that and I love that. I just haven't been into Seth MacFarlane in a long time. Nothing against him or people I just haven't laughed at Family Guy in a long time and laughed at his comedy in a while.
I'm not a fan of Family Guy at all.
I used to like it, but then but for some reason Orville came out and everybody was like, oh, Orville's so great. It's like, better than Star Trek. And so like, unfortunately in my subconscious, that's like a notch against it. Like, and then when Discovery comes out and I love Discovery and then people are like, oh, Orville's a better Star Trek than Discovery. I'm like, all right, so now you really don't want me to ever watch it. Like, keep telling me how much better it is than Star Trek and I'll be sure.
Which is why I bring it up, because I do have I hear a lot of people say on social media that Orville is what Star Trek should have been. And obviously there are perspectives to that there are some things that people probably wanted to see happen in Star Trek that didn't, and then the Orville sort of hit that. It's definitely a more comedic version. I love it. I think it's just, again, something different. It could have been just another version of a Star Trek show, right? Like the Star Trek Orville. Like, I could see that being a thing. But
I feel like for me, what I wanted out of the Orville, I'm getting out of Lower Decks.
Okay.
I mean, it really is a very similar type of show, but it's actually Star Trek. It's in canon as far as we can tell so far, and it's really funny. It really is super funny. Where the Orville sometimes it's supposed to be a sitcom, but you get some episodes where you finish watching the episode and you're like, I don't think I actually laughed once in this episode. So,
which is kind of funny because Star Trek, like a sci-fi show being a sitcom, it's like an oxymoron.
But it works. It really works for Lower Decks.
It does.
It really
I'll say the first episode of Lower Decks is a little cheesy because I feel like they're trying too hard to cram too much Star Trek references and jokes in there. But by like episode 2 or 3, they really kind of level out. And by halfway through season 1, it is like really laugh out loud funny.
Season 2 so far is a friggin' riot.
It's
like
great,
it's Genius. Yeah.
I follow Jack Quaid on social media, so he's been actually talking about his character that's in Lower Decks all the time.
Great character.
Boimler is the man.
To like sit down and watch it, and I'm like, so anyway, I'm gonna have to watch that. It's my home.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely need to watch it. Hey, listen, we've been on for almost an hour and a half now.
An hour and a half.
So we've got. I mean, I could probably keep talking for hours, but I need to be able to download this damn file so I can edit it and re-upload it to YouTube. So we're gonna have to cut it off here. But guys, thanks for doing this. I would love to have another Trek episode one day where we can maybe go in depth into a specific Trek topic. I mean, I could talk Trek all the time. I any day you guys feel like you want to talk Trek, shoot me a quick message on Instagram. We'll do it podcasts.
Same. Yeah. Right.
Well, there's a bunch of new series coming out, right? So we should do one after we watch the new series.
We'll do a follow-up for sure.
There you go. An after hours show. We should definitely do that.
I like that.
I like it.
How about you guys pitch what you're doing right now, where people can find you on social media, anything like that? Debbie, why don't you start?
I'm not doing much of anything. I'll be honest. I just finished moving into a new place, as some of you have seen behind me, my wall of fabric, etc. So I haven't actually been doing much lately, but you can find me on Instagram at Darkly Designed. It's in my name at the bottom there, at Darkly Designed. Pretty much anywhere on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that's me, the same tag. I do some mixology, so I can, give you a good recipe for a drink to try, or, rehash.
Yeah, my cup is empty, unfortunately.
You gotta fix that.
Yeah, definitely. Tim, what about you?
You can find me on Instagram. That's my favorite of the different social media platforms. Black Captain Kirk, not spelled the way you think it would be. But anyway, photography, graphic edits, all kinds of stuff. Hit me up. I'll be back to doing photo shoots and going to cons once I feel like the pandemic's under a little more control. But until then, you just can connect with me on social media.
Yeah, everybody needs to go check out Tim's Instagram page. I mean, some of the pictures, some of the edits are wicked.
Thank you so much.
So far, Tim's really been focusing, I guess, on cosplay. You were saying you want to get into a little bit of different stuff too, but you've really been focusing on, at least on your Instagram, cosplay photography, and some of the edits are so hot. So
thank you so
work
much.
On that, man.
Appreciate it.
Jeff.
Yeah, I just followed Tim on Instagram there. I gotta check out Tim's stuff. It pretty dope. Debbie and I are old friends. Debbie and I are. She was one of the first people I met in the cosplay community. Again, same thing. You can see my name there, Messiah Complex Cosplay. You can find me across all social media, Messiah Complex Cosplay, mostly on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook, some on Twitter, some on Vero, some on Original Glaze. I also have the domain www.messiahcomplexcosplay.com. Right now, there's some images and placeholders there, but eventually you'll be able to see past events, current events, future events, book me, merch, the whole 9 yards. If we're ever going to get to that phase or stage, we probably won't, but it's better to be safe.
You never know. Yeah,
exactly. Working on a bunch of different cosplays right now, and the current plan is Fan Expo, limited edition in Toronto, October 22nd, 23rd, 24th. I pretty much already have a lineup all set up, but bus tickets are purchased, and hotel is purchased, and tickets are purchased. So fingers crossed that it's actually going to happen. I am going to be in your neck of the woods, and you know what? I'm pretty much, even if they cancel, I've already got the room and the ticket, so I'm probably just going to come to Toronto and hang out for 3 days anyway. So
Tim, wait, Tim, where do you live? Are you local?
I'm right outside of
Toronto.
I'm outside of DC, in Maryland.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was like, we could have done like a nice little let's do a photo shoot.
Nice little group up. Well, JS is already telling people that my hotel room is basically like the party place.
Hey, you're the one bringing it up now.
Okay.
That's official. Jeff has brought it up, everybody.
You've only brought it up every single podcast we've done so far.
But even if you didn't say anything, that's always been the assumption.
Of course, yes. No, by all means. I'm in my own room this time, though. I'm not sharing with anybody. So yeah, obviously anybody's wanting to drop by and say hi and have a beer or whatever and have a drink. So, but yeah, that's the current plan, and then obviously trying to plan stuff out for next year and getting some bills together and stuff. So,
can I point out that assuming Fan Expo does go ahead, I will be doing stuff with the Doctor Who Society, so you'll probably see me in some variation of a Doctor Who cosplay if you want to say hi.
In the Doctor Who booth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is Dalek Oren going to be there? Do you know?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of
If
their
the
all of
Doctor Who
Dalek
Society
Orange
is
people.
there, yeah.
He'll
Oh
be
yeah,
there.
yeah. They pretty much are the Doctor Who Society these
Yeah,
days.
I think he's working on a new Dalek. Actually,
He
I
is,
thought
yeah.
he is, isn't he? Yeah, I thought I saw that.
I think
yeah.
I think he's in Sanding Hell as well, Jeff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he
He
is.
was
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, a
Well,
lot more than I know.
I'll be at Fan Expo. Whether I'm actually in costume or not is going to greatly depend on whether I can fit in any of my
I know.
costumes. So that's going to be a big
feel
if.
those vibes.
But I'll be there regardless. But everybody can find me at Geeks and Co. You know, the Geeks and Company Instagram page or my personal Instagram, JSBelanger1701. That's right. If anybody's wondering if I'm a Trekkie or not, I definitely am. But that's it for now. Thanks everybody for sticking to the end and watching. Again, make sure you click like and subscribe below. We always love the support. But again, that's it. Stay geeky, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what are you doing, guys?